Welcome back, everybody. Today we're looking at some breaking news from the Faroe Islands.
Oh, wow. Breaking news.
Yeah, so it looks like things are really developing quickly over there, especially with the relationship to the Nordic Council.
Right.
Um, and we've got some great sources lined up to give us the very latest.
Fantastic.
We're looking at Kringvarp Faroe
Always a good one.
in Trifo and VP.fo as well.
Yeah, those give us a great view of what's going on.
Absolutely. So we'll be able to get a really good picture of what's happening and what it means.
Awesome.
So let's jump right into it. The biggest news of the day seems to be coming from Kringvarp Faroe.
Okay.
They're reporting that Greenland has made the decision to boycott the Nordic Council.
Wow. A full boycott.
Yeah, this isn't just like a letter of concern or anything. It's a full boycott.
That's significant.
It really is. We've seen some tension building there for a while.
Right. They've been expressing their concerns.
Exactly. And it seems like this is how it's all coming to a head.
What do you think is driving such a drastic step?
Well, it seems like Greenland feels like their concerns aren't being taken seriously enough.
Makes sense.
They feel like their perspective, particularly when it comes to things like environmental issues and economic development in the Arctic,
Right.
that they're just not being given enough weight.
Yeah, their voice isn't being heard.
Exactly. So this boycott, it's almost like they're saying, look, you're not listening to us, so we're going to make you listen.
It's a powerful statement, that's for sure.
It really is. And then on top of all of that, Kringvarp Faroe is also reporting that decisions were made this morning about the future of the Faroe Islands' own involvement with the council.
Oh, wow. So things are really heating up.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. So before we get too deep into that, I think it would be helpful to kind of step back for a moment.
Sure.
And for anyone who might not be completely up to speed, can you remind us, what exactly is the Nordic Council?
Absolutely.
And why should anyone outside of Scandinavia even care about any of this?
Well, the Nordic Council, it's not just some regional group that gets together to chat. It actually has real influence.
Oh, I see.
It's almost like a testing ground for international cooperation.
Interesting.
You've got Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden,
Right.
and then the autonomous territories of Faroe Islands, Greenland and Åland,
Yeah.
all working together on all sorts of issues.
Like what?
Everything from environmental protection to social welfare, you name it.
Wow.
And the decisions they make there often have ripple effects,
Really?
across Europe and even globally.
So Greenland's boycott could really shake things up then.
Oh, absolutely. You could throw a real wrench in the works.
Wow, and speaking of shaking things up, VP.fo is reporting on something else that caught my eye.
Okay.
Faroe's MP Meta has sent a letter urging for a change to the Helsingfors Agreement.
Right. The agreement that basically governs the council.
Exactly, and she's calling for the Faroe Islands and Greenland to be granted full membership.
Instead of their current observer status.
Exactly.
That's a pretty big ask.
It is a bold move for sure, especially considering everything else that's going on.
I agree. What do you think is behind this push for full membership
Well, I think it speaks to a growing desire for self-determination.
in both the Faroe Islands and Greenland?
Exactly. They want a seat at the table, not just a voice from the sidelines.
Makes sense.
And so, with Greenland stepping back and the Faroe Islands potentially stepping up, what does all of this mean for the future of the council?
That's the million kroner question, isn't it?
It really is.
It's tough to say for sure, but if Greenland follows through with this boycott
Right.
and the Faroe Islands actually manage to secure full membership,
Yeah.
the entire dynamic of the council could shift dramatically.
How so?
Well, for one thing, we could see a much greater focus on Arctic issues.
With the Faroe Islands taking a more prominent role.
Exactly. But there's also the risk of increased tension and division,
Well, right, because some members might resist these changes.
For sure. It's a really fascinating situation.
It's like we're watching a slow-motion political earthquake unfold.
I like that analogy.
And we can't forget about the economic implications of all of this either.
Right.
Greenland's economy is heavily reliant on things like fishing and natural resources.
And that Faroe Islands are increasingly reliant on aquaculture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So balance of power within the council could have a real impact on things like fishing quotas, environmental regulations, even trade agreements.
Absolutely. This goes way beyond just political posturing.
Right. And speaking of the Faroes economy, we've got some interesting news on that front as well.
Oh, yeah.
Both in.fo and VP.fo are reporting that Faroe Banki, one of the major Faroes banks,
Right.
is posting some pretty impressive profits.
How impressive.
119 million DKK.
Wow, that's a healthy sign.
It really is. And it seems to be in line with other indicators that suggest a period of strong economic growth in the Faroe Islands.
Driven largely by the fishing and aquaculture industries.
Exactly, which reminds me of another headline from VP.fo.
Okay.
Bakafrost, the Faroe's aquaculture giant.
Right.
They're getting ready to launch the world's largest feed barge.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's being built by a company called Groquak, and it's absolutely massive.
Sounds like they're feeling pretty confident about the future.
They're definitely doubling down on aquaculture, which on the one hand is great for the Faroes economy, but then on the other hand,
There's always another hand.
right, Kringvarp Faroe also mentions that Bakafrost is actually pretty worried about the potential impact of Trump's trade policies.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so how vulnerable is the Faroes economy to external forces like this?
Especially given its reliance on fishing and now this huge expansion in aquaculture.
Exactly.
That's a really important point. You know, the Faroe Islands are by nature a small, specialized economy.
Right.
They're heavily dependent on exports.
Especially seafood.
Exactly. And so any disruptions to global trade flows,
Can have a big impact.
absolutely, whether it's political disputes, trade wars, global recessions,
Yeah.
all of these external factors can create a lot of uncertainty for the Faroe Islands.
So this rapid growth, it's a bit of a gamble then.
You could say that high reward, but potentially high risk as well.
Right, and that makes this whole Nordic Council situation even more interesting because the decisions made there could have a direct impact on how the Faroes economy navigates all of these challenges.
Oh, absolutely. The relationship between the Faroe Islands and the Nordic Council, it's more important now than ever,
It could really shape their economic future.
especially as they're dealing with all this global uncertainty.
Well, it looks like we've got a lot to unpack here.
We do.
We've got the political maneuvering within the Nordic Council, the economic implications of Greenland's boycott,
Mm-hmm.
and the Faroe Islands' push for full membership,
Right.
and then the potential impact of global trade policies on this small but very ambitious island nation.
It's all connected.
It really is.
It's fascinating.
So maybe we should dive a bit deeper into some of these specific stories to get a clearer picture of what's actually happening on the ground.
Sounds like a plan. This whole situation with Greenland and the Nordic Council, it really highlights this larger trend we're seeing around the world.
Oh yeah, what's that?
A real resurgence of regional identities.
Huh, interesting.
And this desire for greater autonomy, you know?
Yeah, like they want to be in control of their own destiny.
Exactly. And it's not just about politics.
What else is it about them?
It's about cultural preservation, economic self-determination, and having a voice on the issues that directly impact people's lives.
Right. They want to feel like they have a say in their own future.
Exactly.
And you can really see this playing out in some of the smaller local news stories that are coming out of the Faroe Islands.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, for example, Kringvarp Faroe has this article about the publication of a brand new Faroes Greenlandic dictionary.
Huh. A dictionary.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually.
What's so cool about a dictionary?
Well, think about it. It's this fascinating example of how these cultural ties can persist even amidst all this political tension.
Right. So even though they're at odds politically, they still share this common cultural bond.
Exactly. This dictionary isn't just a tool for communication. It's a symbol of the shared history and heritage between the Faroe Islands and Greenland.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
It's a reminder that these connections run deeper than any political disagreements.
That's a good point.
And then on a lighter note, Kringvarp Faroe also reports that you can now buy wigs made with Faroe's hair.
Wigs made from Faroe's hair.
Yeah, I know it's kind of out there.
That's pretty niche.
It is, but it speaks to this entrepreneurial spirit and creativity that you often find in these island communities.
Right, they're taking something unique to their culture and turning it into a product.
Exactly. In this case, it's the strong, healthy hair of the Faroes people.
So it's like a quirky little example of how globalization can sometimes lead to the rediscovery and celebration of these local traditions.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So we've got dictionaries and wigs, but let's get back to some of the more serious issues.
Sure.
We're talking about the potential risks of the Faroe Islands' rapid economic growth.
Right, their dependence on those key industries.
Right. Yes, exactly. VP.fo has an article about this controversial new development on Faroe.
Oh, what's happening there?
It's a fish meal and oil factory that's been approved.
Okay.
But there are a lot of concerns from the local residents.
What are they worried about?
Well, this is a perfect example of the kind of dilemma that the Faroe Islands are facing.
In what way?
On the one hand, this factory promises new jobs and economic benefits for the community.
Right, that's always good.
But on the other hand, there are these legitimate concerns about the potential environmental impact.
Oh, I see, like the damage it could do to the water quality and the marine life.
Exactly, and that's crucial to the Faroes' way of life.
Makes sense.
And this tension between economic development and environmental protection isn't unique to Faroe, right?
Not at all. We saw it with the Bakkafrost expansion.
It seems to be this recurring theme in a lot of the articles that we're looking at.
Right. It's like this microcosm of the global struggle to balance economic growth with sustainability.
And the Faroe Islands, with their limited landmass and fragile ecosystems, they're even more aware of this challenge than most.
Because their economic success is so closely tied to the health of their environment.
Exactly. So any decision that prioritizes one over the other could have these long-term consequences.
Right. It's a tough situation.
So how are the Faroes people dealing with all of this? Are there any solutions or compromises being proposed?
Well, there are certainly a lot of conversations happening. Both Kringvarp Faroe and VP.fo highlight this growing awareness of these sustainability issues
Among who?
among Faroe's businesses and policymakers.
Oh, okay, so they're not ignoring it.
Not at all. There's this real push toward more responsible fishing practices, investments in renewable energy, and a focus on developing ecotourism.
So they're trying to minimize their impact on the environment.
Exactly. It's like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, you know?
Yeah, trying to maintain economic growth without destroying the natural beauty and the resources that make the Faroe Islands so special.
It's a tough balancing act, for sure.
And this brings us right back to the Nordic Council.
How so?
Well, if the Faroe Islands do get full membership, they'll have this much bigger platform to advocate for their own vision of sustainable development.
Right. They could actually influence regional policies on things like fishing quotas, environmental regulations, even investments in green technology.
Exactly. So this whole saga with Greenland's boycott and the Faroes' push for greater autonomy, it's not just about politics.
Right. It's about the future of the Faroe Islands environment and their way of life.
It's about who gets to decide their future and what values will shape those decisions.
Exactly. Will it be economic growth at all costs, or will it be this more holistic approach?
Right, one that prioritizes environmental protection, cultural preservation, and the well-being of the Faroes people.
Exactly.
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
But even with all this uncertainty and all this change, there are still signs of life moving forward in the Faroe Islands.
Like what?
Well, Furtos has this article about the construction of a new school in Hoyvik.
Oh, that's great. Investing in education is always a positive sign.
Right, it shows that they're looking toward the future and preparing their young people for whatever challenges lie ahead.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about academics either.
Oh, what else?
And Teresa. Olafel also mentions a new community building being built in IA.
Oh, cool.
It's interesting because it's combining several existing facilities into one central hub.
Oh, so it's like a multi-purpose space.
Exactly.
I've seen that in a lot of communities lately.
It's a good idea, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It fosters a sense of community. It gives people a place to connect. And it's often more efficient in terms of using resources.
Thanks for joining us, and until next time.